Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Sage. What is up? I want to talk about Black history as part of Black History Month. Now, Black History Month was created in 1926. It was called Negro History Month by Carter G. Woodson. This is a historian who wanted to teach Black history to the kids. At the time, it was not being taught in the schools. So he created Black History or Negro History Week. In the 1970s, it was expanded from Negro History Week to Black History Month. That's where we are today. Every February, we talk about Black history, and that's what I'm gonna do today in this video, the real Black history. In order to look at Black history in America, we're going to have to look at Spain. We're going to have to look at Africa, okay? Because all the black people came from Africa, obviously. But Spain had a lot to do with our history and our migration to America, okay? So what happened is, back in the day, and I mean back in the day, like back in the 1400s, way back in the day, black people, Spanish people, we all got along, okay? There was no wars between us. We were friendly. We could cross borders freely. Black people was living, or African people were living in Spain. Spain people were living in Africa. It was all harmonious, okay? If you go to Spain right now today, because I've been there recently, you go into any church out there, you're going to see a black Jesus. You're going to see a black Mother Mary. If you go to Montserrat, where Hitler looked for the Holy Grail, famously, you're going to find the famous black Jesus right there that everybody goes there and they kiss it and they touch it and they pray to it. Black Jesus, okay? This is in Spain, and that's because back in the day, Jesus was black. I'm sorry. Hey, all right. I digress. I'm not going to go there. But, you know, they keep it real in Spain. Let's just put it that way. So what happened is they were friends. Now, the Spain people were conquistadors. Once they got some religion in them, they lost their mind. They wanted to spread it all over the world, right? So they set sail. They were good sailors. They went out west and they discovered America. Discovered America. You know what I mean when I say that. But anyway, they had black crew members on their ships. Their black friends from Africa were on their ships. In fact, one of their sailors, one of the conquistadors, one of the black explorers, the guy who discovered Mexico along with Cortez, was this black dude named Juan Garrido. Okay, he sailed with Hernan Cortez. He's one of the ones who discovered the Caribbean and all that stuff, along with Balboa, along with what's his name, Columbus. They all had black people with them. Okay, so we were in the mix way back, long before United States or slavery was even thought of, okay? Now, the African countries did have a habit of selling off other African people as slaves, black on black crime. It happens today, it happened back then. We would capture our own people, we would sell them to other countries as slaves, okay? We did that, I'm sorry. The black people did that in Africa. And as a result, when the conquistadors, when they went to the Caribbean, they went to these places that they discovered, they wanted to build settlements and they wanted to build churches and so they would buy a bunch of slaves from Africa and ship them out there. So as early as 1502, the Caribbean island was filled with slaves. Black slaves were in the Caribbean starting from 1502. All right? Now, of course, there's free people too amongst the black slaves, because like I said, there was free blacks who were all actually conquistadors and who were sailors and who were actually bringing them out there. So also French people, they didn't have slavery, so French people had their little explorers too. So they were going out to America also. So you got to remember, there was like a mixture of black, free and enslaved people. Now, in 1565, a man named Pedro Menendez and 3 of his black crew members, they go up to St. Augustine, Florida. He wrote in his journal that he found free black people living out there already. They were living in Fort Caroline, which is like a French fort that was out there. So he goes out there and he establishes St. Augustine, Florida in 1565. St. Augustine, Florida in 1565, they have a little area called Fort Moses. This is the first chocolate city. The first chocolate city. Man, our people used to go there party. It was no slavery. There was no discrimination. It was cool, man. It was like Harlem back in the day. We had clubs going on. The black people was the police. The black people was the garbage man. We had it all. We had it going on back then in 1565. Chocolate City. All right. And that was in St. Augustine, Florida. In 1565, this is like 70 years before the Mayflower landed. Okay. Around 1619, Jamestown, Virginia, white people from England, they bring in about 20 black slaves. Okay, the indentured slaves. I'll explain that in a second. They weren't real slaves. They weren't like race-based slaves. There was white slaves too, along with them. But they bring in 20 black slaves, and that's like the official start of black slaves in America. Because really the people in Florida, they weren't slaves. They were just out there getting their groove on, So 1620 is when the Mayflower lands and the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving and all that other crap. All right. So all of this stuff that I just said happened way before the Mayflower even landed. We were already here. We were already established. We were already conquering the lands. We were already living off the lands. We were already making babies with the Indian women. We were already chilling before white people even came off the Mayflower. All right, it's a established fact. Now, let me explain slavery back then. It was indentured slavery. It wasn't like it is now. Okay, I mean, it wasn't like it became. Basically, you had to pay off a debt, or instead you're a criminal. Instead of being sentenced jail time, the judges say, okay, you're going to be 20 years. You're going to be Mr. Brown's slave. And that's how it worked back then, okay? And after 20 years, you were free. It was indentured slavery. You know who changed that? You know who made slavery the horrible thing that it became? A black man. Again, black on black crime. This dude named Anthony Johnson in 1654 was a black slave owner. He had indentured slaves. He didn't want to let them free. So he goes to court. He changes the law. He wins his court case. The law is changed, saying that you could be a permanent slave owner and you can have permanent slaves. Thank you to this black dude. Thank you. How ironic is that slavery, the first slave owner with the first slave was a black free dude that lived in America. It's true. It's true. I'm sorry. I'm telling you, this is the truth. All right. Now, we got slaves, we got white slaves, we got blacks, we got indentured slaves. Like I said, just poor people, you could be a slave back then, right? But there's a lot of free black people also. So America's being, started. All the colonies, all that stuff, that you hear about is starting up right now. So around 1770, British people, they're in Boston, and there's a protest with the Americans, because Americans don't want the British people in Boston because the king just raised the taxes on all the American people, and they don't, they're like protesting it. So a black dude, this cool looking black dude named Crispus Attucks, he goes out there to protest, man, and the British people kill this guy in cold blood, and this is what sparks the American Revolution. The American Revolution started off the blood of a black man named Crispus Attucks in 1770. All right, where are we at now? 1788, Constitution's ratified. This is when, 1776, to start Revolutionary War with England. We win it. They write the Constitution afterwards. 1788, the Constitution is ratified. This Constitution is racist garbage against black people, and it does not discriminate whether you're free, whether you're a slave, whether you're an immigrant. It does not care. It says that if you're black, you are less than a man. I think it was 1/4 of a man or 3/4 of a man or something like that. It says that you're property only. Black people are property. They can't read or write. All this stuff is law. You can't read or write. You can't teach them how to read or write. You can't do they're property. They're like dogs, okay? This is in the Constitution. After that, slavery explodes. White people go crazy. They start going to Africa. They start buying up all the black slaves that they can find. Millions and millions and millions of black people are brought over to America to become slaves. Millions and millions and millions of them die in the Middle Passages. Out of 100 million black people that they brought out to become slaves in that 100 years until the Civil War, only about 6 million people survived. It was horrible. It was horrible. White people lost their mind after the Constitution was signed. And, you know, hey, that's when the we shall overcome. That's when that whole thing started. Because our rights got reduced drastically, okay? Now, by 1863, Abraham Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation. He ends slavery, okay? At the time, there was about 4 million slaves freed, and there was about 1.5 million slaves who were already free, all right? So these are slaves who already had their own businesses going, already had their land, who weren't slaves. I mean, these are black people who already had their stuff going on, and they weren't slaves. But then you have 4 million uneducated, illiterate slaves who were free, right? Now, America, they tried to ratify this. They gave them 40 acres and a mule. Andrew Johnson gave him 40 acres and a mule. He did give some of the families that, but it wasn't expanded to everybody who was slaves, obviously, because there was millions of us and we couldn't give. But we still owned about, what was it? I have it written down. We still own about 50 million acres worth, or $50 million worth of land back when slavery ended. So there were some poor blacks, and but there was also some rich blacks, okay? There was also some rich blacks, okay? It wasn't like we were all poor after slavery ended. It wasn't like we were all uneducated, illiterate, because like I said, even throughout slavery, there was rich slaves. Or they were free slaves. I'm starting to lose my train of thought because there's so much to talk about. But I'm trying to get it to the end. I'm getting nervous because it's after 11 minutes now. All right, so in 1902, by 1902, we rebounded, man. We rebounded from slavery. There were black bankers, there were black doctors, there were black scientists. In Greenwood, Oklahoma, they called it Black Wall Street because there were so many black successful people. We were doing our thing. In fact, we had the first black millionaire, Madam C.J. Walker. When she died in 1919, she had $10 million. Her competition, Annie Turbo, had $14 million. These were black people back in the day when there was a lot of white people who were poor because of Civil War and because they couldn't get jobs. They got jealous because of black people. We had rebounded so much. We were doing so good, right? The problem is white people got jealous. Greenwood, Oklahoma, in 1921, they basically massacred everybody down there. That's when the Ku Klux Klan and everybody started going crazy. And that's when we became kind of like, yes, sir, master. Okay, I hear you, boss. Because, you know, they weren't having it. They weren't having it because of our success. But we were really successful during that boom, all right? Now, despite all of the troubles, despite all of that, we still became responsible for some of the biggest innovations in the history of mankind. Came from black Americans. The traffic light, the gas mask, okay? The CCTV cameras. You know what I'm talking about, the alarm system. The cameras you're putting around. That happened because a black lady said, look, I'm tired of people breaking in my house. I'm going to put up the cameras when I go to work. Okay, you think it just happened? No, we invented that. Mailboxes. We invented mailboxes. LASIK eye surgery. LASIK eye surgery. Touch-tone phone, caller ID, fiber optic cable, you know, the super soaker. That was us, man. Of course, we loved it. We used to do it with water balloons, but then we made the super soaker. We had to do it, man. Black people. 3D graphics, okay, that you see in the movies, you know, Terminator and all that special effects. Black people invented 3D graphics. Yes, sir, we did. And the blood bank saved so many lives. You're gonna have to thank a black person next time you're in a car accident or something and you need a blood transfusion. Bam. Who's responsible? A black dude. Saves your life, okay? So we had a lot. We were here. We were the first conquistadors, okay? We established the first city in the United States long before pilgrims came, okay? We made inventions that shaped the modern world. Okay, so I want all you black people out there to be proud to celebrate this month. Okay, it's for you. And I want you to recognize your true history. It's more than Harriet Tubman. It's more than Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, the slave trade, MLK, Rosa Parks. Swing low, sweet. It's more than that, okay? It's about us and the accomplishments that we made, and you should be proud, okay? So that's all I got. I just want to let you guys know that is our true black history. Look it up if you don't believe me, but hey, it is what it is. I don't make this stuff up. All I do is report the facts. Talk to you guys later. Peace.